station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Hey lovelies, this is Ria Bow on Long Live Radio. Yes, as you can see from the title, this one is about Article 13, Article 11 that's just passed by the EU. The Twitter sphere is going through the roof, I've got to say. And I'm going to wait for you guys to turn up because I've been out trying to dig up information. And I'll always say that many minds are better than one. So I'm going to play up a tune, which is of course copyright, but it's not quite here yet. But I'm going to wait for some lovelies to turn up in the chat to find out and see if we can learn more from the people in the chat and what I have found about Article 11 and Article 13. I've got some videos for you to watch as well so we can get informed on what's coming just around the corner. But meanwhile, I'm going to play a nice upbeat number until people get in the chat room, and I'm going to be reading out all your messages, okay? So just bear that in mind. If you're watching this on Rewind, just nudge it forward, you know, because this is a live show and I want to get the comments of the lovelies in the chat. But meanwhile, Green Day, Basket Case.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just up? I went to a shrink to analyze my dreams. She says it's like a sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. Choke with my whited clothes and bringing her down. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Grasping to control, so I better hold on. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Hey lovelies, welcome to another day in watching freedom of speech and just general liberty go down the tubes. I'm going to say hello to the lovelies in the chat because this is a live show. I want to reach out to you guys to see what you've got and what you know about Article 13 and Article 11. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat. Rob Ellis, morning man. Stockport Andy, thank you for supporting us. Stockport, Gordon Redding, how you doing? Night and Day Plumbing Solutions, always there for the admin, thank you. Elizabeth Taylor, no way. Stockport, I'm going to play that video, no way. Dave Cullen one is going to be part of a video combo that I'm putting together. The Trumpster the trumpeter. Hey, trumpeter, how you doing? Elizabeth Taylor, how you doing? Mr. Mensa, how you doing? Dave Toll out the EU. God, yeah. We'll have to see about that. I've been doing that today on the radio. Who else have we got? Rob Ellis, hello, man. Sheila Simpson, hi Sheila. Elizabeth Taylor, who else have we got? Martin Houston, hey Martin, thank you for the messages. Ninja7, how are you doing? Darlene Stevens, hey Darlene. Night and Day Plumbing, right, that's all we've got on at the minute. Okay, so while I'm live on air on the radio about 2 hours ago, I get the news that, first of all, that Jesse Smollett has been let off all charges. Interesting, but we're not doing that today. But we find out that Article 13 and 11 have passed. So what can I find? I've been out looking for it. Is there a date? What does it involve? We've got some good people on the net that have done videos on it. So I thought I'd put a little compilation together for you to view, for people that don't know about it. Hiya Neil, how are you doing? I love the peace sign. Neil Proctor, how are you doing? So I'm going to be playing up some videos, which of course are breach of copyright, but that's the world we're moving into at a million miles an hour as free speech. I really feel for the meme meisters. I mean, how much have we enjoyed the memes over the years? You know, some people are it's an art form, isn't it? That's what it is. They're gone. So I went out looking. I found the obvious videos as well. Dave Cullen I went to because I trust Dave Cullen. I found some other ones. I found some official footage from the EU. We've got some empty suits saying, oh, the world's going to be better for it and all that kind of stuff. Mr. Mensa says free speech is a must for an open society. It's part of the backbone, isn't it, of a good society, to be able to feel free and speak easy, or we're moving more towards a communist state and you just shut up and here's what you can and can't say, which is what it is, right? So I'm going to bring up on screen, Ruby T says 29th of, well, just the 29th, and I think I know what you mean. So I'm going to bring up on screen for you some of the stuff I've found so far. And I'm going to bring you up this really nice guy that's really likeable from the EU. Probably not. Hiya, Keith. So this is the official line that's come out of the EU. I need to wind this up. So I need all these, all this audio is really quiet. So I'll mix it as I go. And this is particularly quiet. But this is like a suit from the EU saying all the doom that you've heard, take no notice of it. The world is going to be a better place. So when the hard-working people of the world that don't spend too much time on the internet go to share a link or do the things and behave the way they do on the internet, they're going to get a nasty shock, aren't they? Morning, Jane. How are you doing? Hi, guys. How's it going? Yeah, we're going all right. We're just hustling along here. And that's why we moved to radio, guys. So check out, if you want to check out our network we've just signed on to, is WBN324. Just type that in your browser, WBN324, and you'll find out more about us if you're new here as well. Morning, Hang the Traitors. I'm going to cover this audio. I'll bring it up on the screen for you. So here's a suit from the EU and what he says about Article 13. I'll try and get to the volume as quick as I can because this is particularly low, but I need to be careful I don't blast anybody's ears off. And here's the first run of a few videos. Check this out.
And that the European Parliament has made it clear that we stand shoulder by shoulder with creative people and industries in the European Union, while making it clear that they deserve compensation for their efforts. And we've mapped out a way for that. However gloomy a picture of this legislation has been painted over the last few days and weeks, it's all an exaggeration. We have created a solid basis to ensure that copyright rules and the digital work can go hand in hand. We've created an effective working basis which will enable member states to implement those provisions. As a result, I sincerely believe that for users, the situation now is far better than it was before. We now have far greater legal certainty as to what is and isn't allowed. And this means that individuals are no longer liable. It's now the platforms who are liable for copyright issues.
There you go. So I got a hold of that, right? So that's like really the only sort of clear message I got coming out from the EU. I found some other footage, but it was not so good. But as you heard there towards the end, they're saying it's down to the platform, not the user. Maybe you've got a take on that, guys. Maybe that is or isn't true, I don't know, but that's from the sort of empty suit's mouth itself. And then I went on to find out what CNN were running about Europe just passed sweeping new copyright rules that big tech hates. Anybody else in the chat? Hang the traitors. Hey, hang the traitors. How are you doing? Ruby T, let's make a very big noise on the 29th. Not looking good. If you go to our 24/7 stream, we covered that today. I covered it with DB. I've called it a mutiny, but we'll have to see how that one pans out. But let's just cover this for now. But let's cover some of what CNN, I'm pushing buttons here, what CNN covered about the Europe just passed it. Check this out.
Facebook, Twitter, Google were in the hot seat this week as members of the British Parliament, a subcommittee, conducted an unprecedented hearing in the U.S. to dig deeper into the problem of misleading and deliberately false news. The MPs grilled top execs from the world of social media.
Has Facebook ever done an analysis of how profitable fake news or the deliberate dissemination of disinformation has been to the company?
I'm sorry, I can't answer. I know we've looked to understand how false news is manifesting itself. I can't say that we've looked specifically at how much money that would have been gained, because it wouldn't be a relevant factor in our decision to remove the content.
The social media execs acknowledged the problem, but made it very clear they still think of themselves as technology companies, not media companies. But MPs pushed back hard and served up a stark reality check.
What actually happens when the journalistic landscape is so decimated and that basically people don't know what to trust? Is there a sense of responsibility that you have in order to ensure that we have that trusted news?
You have all of this information. We have none of it because you won't show it to us.
Doesn't this just indicate just how powerful you have become and what a Pandora's box, to use my colleague's friend earlier, you have opened up?
So the deliberate use of your platform to distribute absolutely false and defamatory information.
Right, so I'm not going to play anymore, but you get the idea of what's going on. That's the way CNN's running it, okay? Let me say hello to some people. What's that? Was it Maniac? Can I just call you Maniac? Hey Maniac, how you doing? Hi KH, how you doing? Flux Cluster, how you doing? I think I've got everybody else. Jeffrey Taylor just said 11 and 13 have been charged to 16 and 17 and have been amended, whereas Dave Cullen from Computing Forever said it hasn't changed a single bit. Somewhat confused. Right, so that's why I came online, sweeties. I'm somewhat confused as well. So I've got Dave Cullen's video here. I really like Dave Cullen. I see him as detailed and thorough, but I think we're now in a really fast moving cycle. I'm trying to get dates. I can't get dates. So I'm just guessing that it's just going to come in. When I went looking for the Google upload filter, is what I found was they've been developing it for the last while. They've spent $100 million on it to develop the Google upload filter, which they'll be selling in. And currently 9,000 broadcasters are using it. And that basically tracks copyright. Rob Ellis said, CNN, laughing my FAO. Changed. Flux, yeah, okay, Flux, no worries. PK30, 501. Force all those on the net to get their fake news from lamestream media. That's the talk, isn't it? Apparently Twitter's absolutely lit up. Hey Gary, how you doing? Beam you some love on a Tuesday. So I'm going to take the Dave Cullen one. Let's start there. So firstly, who has got this nailed down? I've been out looking around. I found something which I kind of believe about Google, being they've been developing this for some time and they're ready to sell on this upload filter, which apparently the platforms are responsible for and not the individual. So in my mind, I heard that guy say that, but I would like, from the EU, I would like to see evidence, something more substantial to say the platform is responsible as opposed to the individual. So that's something in my mind that I need to sort out as well. Oh my God, my brain is spinning, says Ruby T. Totally. And I just thought, hey, look, let's go on live. Maybe some people will jump in the live chat and they'll have some detail that certainly I'm looking for. Is there a date? Is there a point on the clock in where it clicks over, where the whole thing changes? Is it progressive? Is it where the platforms are just solely responsible? So as each platform introduces the upload filter, what is going on? You know, I'm not exactly sure. Elizabeth Taylor, Google, what does that say? Gestapo. Kind of, yeah. I mean, what can you do? I mean, it is really draconian, I must say. It's like they've got everybody in the net, and now we're in the net, and now they're going to tighten the net up, aren't they? And it feels like a Marxism kind of thing. You can and can't do anything. Legally, there is a case for copyright. There just is. But to stretch it so far to images, and it's a pretty heavy-handed way to go about things. Paul Wright says, at least this will wake up the normies and lefties to the true evil of the EU. Well, it's a bureaucracy, isn't it? Hey, Candy, how are you doing? Operation Dragonfly. Completely, Candy. I get that. So that's something that's going on, right? So on Paul Wright's comment there, I'm going to take, at least this will wake up the normies and lefties to the true evil of the EU. Okay, that's a good point. Hey, Dan Manning, how you doing? Bye-bye, Google. Hello, Firefox. I already use it as well as Google. But, okay, so that's a good point, Paul, and thank you. I think is what a bigger story for, obviously, we're not the subplot, but we've got another story running alongside with leaving the EU, which isn't going well, I've got to say. We can maybe talk about that in a minute. Because what I did discover, if you listen to the 24/7 stream, is that the ECJ, the highest court in the land in Europe, have rules that if one country wants to deport migrants to another country, which they call member states. So in this case, it was Germany, and the ruling was for Germany. Germany wanted to export migrants to other members of the EU or other countries. The EU have said that's okay to do that. So Germany can deport migrants to any one of the 28 member states, because we're still in the EU, and there's nothing that the receiving country can do about it. I'd say that's a bigger story to help sway the EU vote as well, I've got to say, because there's nothing you can do about it. They've already ruled on it. Neil Proctor, what's that filth column coming out? The shadows, wake up, people. Absolutely. What else have we got? They want to ban memes. Yeah, memes are kind of not looking that good. Tech companies had it's moved. Sorry guys, it went off screen. I can't see as many as you. Maga says, Candy. Let's take the Dave Cullen video and we'll catch up with Dave. Then I've got another video to piece together for you. But meanwhile, I love Dave Cullen. He's a great voice for Ireland, and he's talking about moving. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may not, but we'll see how it plays out. Mr. Mentor says, no surprise there, Germany runs the EU. I think a lot of people think like that. Let's take the Dave Cullen video. What does No Way say? EU referring up countries as states. They sneaked that one in. It's already gone through, guys. Germany applied to export migrants, and this has been upheld, and wherever they're going to send them, the receiving country or member state has no choice. That's the way it is. LCB, thank you for supporting us, is in the house. Paul Wright, they voted in favour of Germany. Imagine my shock. Case surprise. Right, let's take a bit of Dave Cullen and keep it on Article 11 and 13. So here's Dave. We love Dave Cullen, and he's had a tough time as well. Check this out, guys.
So, the beginning of the end is finally here. A dark day for internet freedom. It's now over, and Articles 11 and 13 have passed in the EU Parliament. The internet as we know it is about to die. Lobbyists have tried in vain for years to bring about draconian copyright reform with SOPA, PIPA and ACTA. but the internet successfully stopped them at every turn. But the forces of evil are nothing if not persistent, and they kept trying until they eventually pushed through immensely destructive new laws that will undermine free speech, online creativity, alternative news media, and even make many internet memes impossible. This is very, very bad news. And we're in serious trouble here. Julia Reda posted the following on Twitter. Dark day for internet freedom. The European Parliament has rubber-stamped copyright reform, including Article 13 and Article 11. MEPs refused to even consider amendments. The result of the final vote: 348 in favour, 274 against. Years of campaigning to stop this has been for nothing. In the end, the EU got what it wanted: a means of controlling and censoring the web and the free passage of information, and no doubt, as a consequence, it also now has a means of scrubbing populist and nationalist movements from the internet. Corporate lobbyists in the mainstream media, as well as the film, television, music, and even video game industries, also got a big win today. Now, any content they own can be removed on their say-so, even if its usage in a particular work previously fell under fair use. I'm going to include an excerpt now from a previous video I made explaining just how destructive the EU copyright directive is going to be. The first thing to understand is that there are multiple vested interests involved here. I'll break them down to just 3. Number 1, commercial rights and IP copyright holders representing the film, television, and music industries. Number 2, the mainstream news media corporations. And number 3, the European Union. Number 1, the film, television, and music industries have been unhappy with the internet since basically day one. They've utterly failed to clamp down on piracy. They can't stand the clips of their content, snippets of their music, and whole songs can be listened to on YouTube, or employed in remix videos, fair use, transformative capacities for commentary, satire, and review. The people in those industries who are lobbying for the EU copyright directive will be granted complete control over every image, video, and song they own. Article 13 of the copyright directive will allow them to detect any material that belongs to them when it's uploaded to a social network and instantly monetize it or remove it. Fair use be damned, regardless as to whether your use of that material is in a non-commercial capacity or not. Content ID matching will be everywhere. As you might imagine, the spreading of memes that make use of a copyrighted image will be impossible. Number 2, the mainstream media. Similarly to the movie, music, and television industries, the mainstream media wants more of the pie at the expense of the little guy. They'll also be able to benefit from Article 13, but Article 11 will be their biggest coup. Article 13 is the database filter, which requires all social networks to filter every bit of content uploaded to them and cross-reference it with material that belongs to commercial rights holders. Article 11 is the link tax. If you're a small blog or alternative media commentator with your own website and you link to a news story from a major publication that you've used as a source, you'll have to pay a fee for that, and you won't be able to include snippets of text from other major publications in a fair use capacity either. A license will have to be agreed, and therefore only large companies will be able to pay for it. The mainstream media will therefore be able to save itself from its current death spiral by forcing other organizations to pay them in this way. As the mainstream media are heavily funded by large corporations, this will make small, up-and-coming, independent, alternative news media almost impossible. An attack on the hyperlink is obviously an attack on the very internet itself. All that will be left in news coverage will be the biased globalist corporate media and their propaganda. Sounds fun. Even individual social media users posting links to articles on Facebook, Twitter, or any similar social network won't be able to do that without Facebook and Twitter having to agree to pay these link taxes. It's possible these social networks will agree to these fees, but it's more than likely that they will simply choose to cease operations in the EU entirely because the costs will become prohibitively expensive. Even small social networks like BitChute, Gab, and Minds will be faced with the same fees. So this isn't a case of the free market will come to the rescue and come up with a solution. The free market will be utterly compromised and unable to properly function, so new solutions will be extremely difficult to develop. Social media tech startups will be unable to grow because the startup costs created by the upload filter and link tax will be exorbitant. Furthermore, another reason that YouTube, Facebook, and others will likely have to greatly compromise or terminate their services in the EU is not just the potentially massive link tax fees, but because the Article 13 upload filter itself is completely impractical. The idea that they would have to devise some kind of sophisticated machine learning system, bot, or algorithm that could trawl through an infinitely large database of material and accurately detect what was original content and what belonged to a movie or music studio is just ridiculous, and the dizzying complexity of implementing such a system would be phenomenal, to say nothing about the costs. Finally, number 3, the European Union. This is the final beneficiary of the Copyright Directive, but for different reasons to the other two. The EU's justification is political. The EU itself is under threat. It no longer wishes for its citizens to be able to freely question its rulings, policies, and actions, and wishes to operate with complete autonomy. It's an anti-democratic, bureaucratic superstate that wishes to answer to no one and looks upon its citizens as a proletariat to be ruled and controlled. It knows that for the most part, the predominantly left-wing mainstream media is pro-EU. It's the mostly Eurosceptic alternative media it wishes to censor. For example, it no longer wishes for people to be able to question the migrant crisis, which it created, so it introduces hate speech regulation. The problem is that hate speech legislation is difficult to apply and information is very difficult to police. This is because too many people have the ability to not only access information and alternative sources, but to spread them far and wide across the web. Information is power, and the EU knows it. The problem they face is that the hate speech argument is wearing thin. The Union faces legitimate criticism that it cannot deal with. It needs another means to control the news media narrative and restrict what its citizens can say and see online. So the EU Copyright Directive will allow the EU to censor the internet by destroying it, and it will do so not under the guise of combating hate speech and what it considers to be fake news, but via the smokescreen of copyright reform. 5 million users who protested this directive with petitions, as well as advice from leading internet and technology experts, academics and activists, they were all ignored. When the EU sets its mind on doing something, it doesn't care what the proletariat has to say about it. Even the staunchest pro-EU...
Okay, guys, you get the idea. There's the lovely Dave Cullen. I'm sure you've heard of him, but if someone's watching this and you haven't heard of him, his channel is called Computing Forever, and he does some great work. He's a great voice for Ireland. Really, really like Dave. I'll take some of the comments in here as well. Anybody in here I haven't said hello to? Anne Barnes, MJ, anybody else? I think Fred's in the house as well. Anybody else? Scammer Basher. How are you doing, Scammer? LCB, Jane. I think I've said hello to everybody else. Right, so here's the thing, right? So this is what I'm thinking. I'm going to share this thought with you. I have no clue if this is possible or not. So the thing that standard copyright works is there's different levels of copyright. Traditionally, there isn't just one copyright. So you could have a record label releases a tune and they could put on their copyright. If it even turns up, it's globally blocked. Warner Brother does this. They're quite common for doing it. But there are other copyrights that say you can play this content as long as it's not monetized. So that at the moment, or certainly traditionally, there are different levels of copyright. And I would say to you, I wonder if it's possible to create a permissioned copyright. So say, for example, this is my idea as I watch this. You can put me right if I'm wrong, okay? Imagine if I contacted Dave contacted me, I contacted other users of the net and I like their content, whoever that may be. They could be a song producer, they could be a video content creator, and we say, okay, we're going to give each other permission to use that copyright. What do you think? Is that a possibility? I'll have a look into it to see if it's possible. At the moment, I'm thinking it's not possible because the EU guy, the suit, said it's down to the platform and not the individual. So the individual rights look as though they've been removed. Again, that's why I've come on live to share it with you. So I'm thinking on the first listen, I would go with, well, let's start a permission club if you want. I don't know, working title, where each creator goes, I give you Dave Cullen, and Dave Cullen gives and whoever else in the equation gives permission to use their content. So this is a nice thing to talk about, isn't it? Is it doable? Is it possible? I'm leaning towards probably not, because the empty suit in the EU, the money man, said is down to the platform and not the individual. So there you go. Doom Urban says no. I'm assuming you mean it's not possible. Is that in what you're referring to, Dom? I don't know. Welcome, Dom. No Way says, what's going to happen to our home Discord? Don't know. We've got to find out about a chat room. That's a work in progress. I can sort of deal with it when I know what I'm dealing with. Don Stupid. Who can you put that in context, Don? Hang the Traitors and Barnes. Gary answered, traitors is an understatement. Okay, Gary. MJ, it's all there in my prep Aussie news list. You got to start somewhere. What else have we got? And Hang the Traitors, hello. Rhesus Christ, hey Christ is in the house. Neil Proctor, long live independent democratic nation states. I don't think you'll get too much resistance to that in here. Martin Houston says people need to move wholesale towards Creative Commons licensing and a large legal fund to sue the false blocking. Okay, so that's something else I've written to Creative Commons some time ago. I've not heard anything back, but check out, if you don't know what it is, it's called Creative Commons. I think it's creativecommons.com, but maybe check that out and see what's going on. Paul Wright, how many people can fit into Hungary? I know we've already looked at the west coast of Hungary. Well, I believe they call it white flight, don't they? Or something like that, or just EU flight, I don't know. We'll have to see how that one pans out. So there's a take from Dave Cullen, guys, and Dave's take on it. Okay, I'm going there now, says Candy. Okay, right, let's bring up another one for you that I lined up, and here's my final one. This seems a bit more of a detailed version of Article 13 for you guys to do. This is from Wired. Now, Wired it's their speciality, isn't it? So we'll have to see how that goes. Martin Houston says it's like open source software, but for lots of different creative works. I've seen it, Martin, and I've written to them to get on board with them, but as yet I've heard nothing back. So we'll have to see how that pans out. I don't know how they deal with radio stations, so we'll just have to see how that one goes. Again, guys, I'm learning as I go here. I really am. And I was hoping you guys probably know more about it than I do. Right, let's bring up another video for you here and we will check this out. And this is Article 13 and will it kill memes? ? Wired explained. So this is obviously from the Wired magazine. This is right up their street, you would have thought, on the tech side of things. Night and Day says 11 and 13 are just another good reason for the UK to get out of the EU ASAP. Right, check this video out, guys, and see what you make of this.
The European Union has a plan to fix the way that copyright works on the internet. You've probably heard of it. It's called Article 13 and it's about to become law throughout the European Union. But there's a problem. Article 13 is really controversial, and some people think it could completely change the way we share content online and make it really difficult for small sites to compete with tech giants. So what is Article 13? It's actually just one small part of a much wider directive called the Directive on Copyright in the Digital Single Market. The whole point of the directive, according to the EU, is to help spread money more evenly between the people that make content, like musicians and journalists, and the platforms that host and share that content. The EU argues that up until now, big platforms like Google News or YouTube have been making loads of money by hosting other people's creative content, but they haven't been funneling much of that cash back to the people who made it in the first place. That's where Article 13 comes in. The idea is to make sure that platforms have licenses for any copyrighted content they want to host. And if they can't get a license for that content, they have to make sure that it doesn't go online in the first place. That might sound pretty obvious, but it's actually been a bit of a grey area for as long as the internet has been around. Say you have a YouTube channel, and you upload a music video without permission from the publisher that made that video. That's definitely not legal. But who's at fault here? Is it your fault for uploading that video in the first place? Or is YouTube to blame for allowing you to upload that video and letting anyone find it online? That is what Article 13 wants to fix. It will force big platforms to be legally responsible for any copyrighted content they host. It will work in two ways. First, platforms can negotiate licenses with copyright holders, say record labels. that allow them to host that content on their platform. YouTube already does this. That's why there are loads of music videos on the platform. And second, if a platform can't get a license to share that content, they'll have to do everything they can to stop it going online in the first place. So who's behind Article 13? The EU is trying to position this fight as a kind of David versus Goliath. You've got the David of the European Union and the small publishers, and you've got the Goliath of the big American tech firms. In reality, it's more of a Goliath versus Goliath. On one side, arguing for Article 13, you have the big record labels and the collecting societies, which are organisations that collect copyright payments on their behalf. They really want Article 13 to come into action. On the other side of the debate, you've got the big tech firms, chief among them, YouTube. They really don't want to have to do anything that will force them to do more to take down copyrighted content. But things are a little more complicated than that. Other critics of Article 13 include Tim Berners-Lee, one of the original founders of the internet, Mozilla Foundation, MIT Media Lab, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. It's also been criticised by a whole raft of European intellectual property law experts who argue that Article 13 just isn't compatible with existing European law. So what's the big problem? Well, Article 13 doesn't really explain how platforms are meant to stop all this copyrighted content from getting online in the first place. And critics of Article 13 argue there's only one way that's possible: upload filters. These would check all content that's uploaded to a platform and make sure to see whether it has copyrighted content or not. If it's got anything copyrighted in it, it doesn't get online. Simple, right? Not really. You see, upload filters might end up blocking loads of copyrighted content that it's actually completely fine to share online. The problem is that copyrighted content comes in a whole bunch of different forms. 10-second video of you lip-syncing to a Taylor Swift song, copyrighted. A GIF of a footballer scoring a goal, copyrighted. Distracted boyfriend meme, also copyrighted. Now, these examples are why you might have heard Article 13 being called the meme ban or the meme killer, but that's not really quite right. In reality, the text of Article 13 does allow for lots of exemptions where copyrighted content is completely fine to be shared online. In reviews, for example, or in cases of caricature, pastiche, or parody. In other words, memes are safe. But the problem is, no one is really sure whether upload filters will be able to tell the difference between exemptions, like memes, and other cases where copyrighted material should not be allowed on the platform. In fact, YouTube already has a system that checks everything that's uploaded to its platform for copyrighted content. It's called Content ID, and it doesn't always get things right. In 2016, for example, Content ID flagged a video by a Harvard law professor because it contained snippets of Jimi Hendrix songs. Now, these are technically copyrighted, but the video should have been completely fine because it was for educational purposes. Content ID has also flagged videos of birdsong and cats purring for incorrectly thinking that there is copyrighted music in there. Other upload filters have got things wrong too. In December 2018, when Tumblr brought into effect its porn ban, it accidentally blocked images of women protesting topless, even though it specifically said that that kind of nudity was completely fine. Now, critics of Article 13 are really worried that if Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube have to start filtering for copyrighted content, we'll have loads of cases of legitimate content that just isn't allowed online. And there's another issue. While the European Union has mostly concentrated on the impact that Article 13 will have on big tech firms, there's a real danger that will also impact much smaller sites. You see, firms are only exempt from Article 13 if they fall into all three of the following categories. 1. They've been available to the public for less than 3 years. 2. They have a turnover of less than 10 million euros annually. And 3. They have less than 5 million monthly visitors. That leaves loads of platforms that will have to follow Article 13. For example, you've got GetReeled, that's America's largest online fishing community, Patreon, which is a website that helps creators get paid for their work, and DeviantArt, which is an online photography website which helps people share art and photos and stuff. Critics of Article 13 argue that small sites won't have the power to negotiate fair licensing deals with the copyright holders, and also will find it too expensive to put into place upload filters to check for copyrighted content. They fear that faced with these heavy burdens, they might have to shut down altogether. So what's next? After well over 2 years of intense negotiations, Article 13 is about to go to the final vote in the European Parliament. That will take place in either March or April 2019. And if it does pass, and it's looking like it will, member states will then have 2 years to pass their own legislation that brings Article 13 into effect in their country. And although YouTube has been suggesting that Article 13 poses a real threat to its existence, it could end up doing quite well out of the legislation. You see, if platforms need to buy content filters to check for copyrighted content, who's going to sell it to them? Google. The internet giant has already spent more than $100 million building a copyright recognition system that's used by more than 9,000 broadcasters, record labels, and movie studios worldwide. You see, even when Silicon Valley looks like it's losing, it could really be winning.
Right, guys, there you heard it. There was a bit more detail, weren't there? I heard a couple of years. It's going to take a couple of years to roll out. I picked up the information elsewhere as well that Google has already got the upload filters all ready to sell to outlets. So that's kind of what's going on. I'll go over to the chat to see what's going on in here. Let's see what we've got. Ruby T, I got lost when he said the. Yeah, we're all a bit lost, right? These are new times for the EU. England is still part of the EU, and I don't see it going anywhere fast. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. They're all in it together, says Nick Proctor. It's all about the money, man, isn't it? It's always been about the money, and it's about the money. So, yeah, what can you say about that? I don't think there's any new news there. Rob Ellis, President Trump is cracking down on this as he's fighting for freedom of speech as left-wing university is destroying CNN in the polls. The mainstream media have been dying for a while, haven't they? Certainly noticeably in the last 5 years. So this has just saved them. In terms of Europe, this has just saved them. We heard stories about VPNs. I think VPN, you're going to be able to use a VPN for a while, but I'm not sure quite how that'll work out. So after hearing this news today, I came online to see what you guys knew about it as well. I'm a bit like you, Ruby T. It's like, well, okay, there's a lot to work out here because traditionally copyright, there isn't one copyright. There's different levels of copyright. So I'm not really sure how that's going to pay out. So if you had a consenting club where you said, okay, I'm going to allow these people in this club to use my material and they can use mine. What's the problem with that? But it's looking as though they've taken it out of the hands of the individual creator themselves. It's a really draconian, heavy-handed thing. And honestly, I don't know how it's going to pan out until I actually see it in work. But having said that, is it just a case where the internet will go dark? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Paul Wright says, does this mean we can filter Diane Abbott from our screens? No, I don't think so. It's the original content, I suppose. Jane Wright, which came first, the software or Article 11 and 13? Don't have an answer for you, Jane. Night and Day, Paul Wright, good point. Not many will. Oh, it's gone off screen for me, guys. What else have we got? Let me have a look down here before we go. Trump is blessing and will prosecute the lying Democrats soon as. Yeah, we'll have to see. Diane Abbott, can we filter this? No. I can't say what's in there. Stuart McDonald, Diana Abbott, pictures of something not that pleasant. Gary says, love that, one of Diane Abbott's. All right, guys, look, I thought I'd bring this with you. I've been out checking it out. I'm left with more questions than answers. At the moment, I'm feeling that the EU found any bad news on the Russian correction. And what a flop that was. Oh my goodness. I'm waiting for some dynamite footage from President Trump to play. I haven't found it yet. Right, guys, I thought I'd come on quickly, share it with you. Obviously, it affects me, it affects our chat room, it affects all of us. I was looking for a date, so it gives me a time period to get equipped and learn more about it. But it's coming, it's past, and we'll just have to see how draconian it is. I'm sure all our lovelies in our chat room will be on top of this and learning as well. So if you want to jump in our chat room, just type in Sunday Long Live Radio. You'll also see it in the chat room as well. Sunday Long Live Radio, if you're just listening on audio as well, because we're a radio station and we sometimes come on and do stuff like this. And I needed to go out there and bring it up there because I was hoping you guys would know more. But anyway, I'm going to say goodbye. That's what I've got of the EU Article 13 and 11 has been passed. Doom has come upon, Twitter's lit up, Marxist and all that kind of stuff. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you another day. Love and peace always. And if you want to jump in the chat room, you'll find it on the Sunday Long Live website. I'll see you soon. Love and peace always. Bye-bye.